The basics of tariffs and their purposes. 1. Definition and purpose of tariffs. A tariff is a tax on imported goods intended to raise their prices within the domestic market. Tariffs serve to protect local industries by making foreign products more expensive and less competitive. For instance, tariffs on imported cars would make domestic vehicles more attractive in terms of price, incentivizing consumers to buy locally produced cars. Historically, tariffs were a major revenue source, especially before the establishment of structured tax systems. In the 1800s, the United States and many European countries funded their governments largely through tariffs. However, as other taxes like income and corporate taxes became prevalent, the role of tariffs as a revenue source diminished. Today, governments use tariffs more strategically, often to influence trade dynamics or protect key industries, rather than solely for revenue. A critical function of tariffs in modern times is to protect emerging or strategically important domestic industries from foreign competition, creating a barrier that allows local industries time to grow. Known as infant industry protection, this concept gives young industries a chance to develop without being overwhelmed by established international competitors. However, economists often debate whether such protection is beneficial long-term, as it can reduce the incentive for these industries to innovate. 2. Ad valorem tariffs, scalable and revenue responsive. These are calculated as a percentage of the imported goods value. For example, a 20% ad valorem tariff on a $1,000 item would mean an additional $200 charge, bringing the total to $1,200. As the value of the goods fluctuates, so does the tariff amount, making ad valorem tariffs scalable and responsive to market conditions. Ad valorem tariffs are often applied to high-value goods, such as luxury items or vehicles, where a fixed percentage of the price can yield substantial revenue. This approach is particularly useful for products where the value fluctuates frequently, as it allows tariff revenue to adjust with the product's market price. The fluctuating nature of ad valorem tariffs can add pricing uncertainty, especially for businesses reliant on imported materials or components. For instance, if steel prices spike globally, the ad valorem tariff on imported steel will also rise, adding more costs for manufacturers using steel in production. 3. Specific tariffs. Fixed fees for predictable revenue. Unlike ad valorem tariffs, specific tariffs impose a fixed charge per unit, regardless of the goods price. For example, a specific tariff of $5 per kilogram of imported cheese applies the same fee whether cheese prices rise or fall. Specific tariffs offer predictability in tariff collection, as revenue remains stable even with price fluctuations in the global market. This is particularly useful for commodities like grain or textiles, where price volatility is common. Specific tariffs do not adjust for inflation, which can erode the real value of revenue collected over time. Moreover, specific tariffs can become burdensome during economic downturns, as businesses face static fees even when market prices are low, potentially intensifying financial strain. 4. Compound tariffs, combining flexibility and stability. These combine the ad valorem and specific approaches, providing both a percentage-based and fixed fee. For example, a tariff might charge a 10% ad valorem rate along with $1 per unit, capturing revenue both from price changes and volume. This dual structure allows governments to maximize revenue on high-volume, high-value goods, while also providing a more balanced approach to fluctuating prices. Compound tariffs are common for products with high value, but unpredictable prices, such as agricultural products or electronics. Compound tariffs can create administrative complexity and are often passed down to consumers, raising final retail prices significantly. For example, compound tariffs on luxury goods may substantially increase prices, making them unaffordable for some consumers and distorting demand. 5. Price distortions and consumer costs. Tariffs raise the price of imported goods, creating a price distortion that encourages consumers to buy domestic products. For example, if imported clothes are subject to a 15% tariff, they become more expensive, pushing consumers toward local clothing brands, even if they are more costly or of lower quality. This creates an artificial demand for domestic products, which can lead to a misallocation of resources in the economy. When tariffs protect less efficient industries, resources like labor and capital are redirected from potentially more productive sectors to industries that survive due to protection rather than competitive advantage. Additionally, price distortions impact consumer behavior, particularly in essential goods. For instance, tariffs on imported food or energy can lead to a higher cost of living, reducing consumers' purchasing power and causing hardship, especially among low-income households. 6. Short-term benefits for domestic producers. By limiting foreign competition, tariffs can provide immediate relief to domestic industries, giving them a temporary advantage. For example, a tariff on imported cars can drive up demand for domestic car manufacturers, potentially leading to job creation within the country. This protection can be valuable for infant industries, allowing them time to develop competitive skills without the pressure of international competition. Over time, these industries may mature and become self-sustaining, although this outcome is not guaranteed and depends on whether the industry can achieve efficiency gains. However, the benefit for domestic industries may be short-lived if it leads to reliance on tariffs rather than innovation. When industries rely on tariffs to remain competitive, they may lack the motivation to invest in R&D, leading to inefficiencies and slower technological progress. 7. Long-term inefficiencies and market stagnation. While tariffs offer short-term benefits, long-term dependence can breed inefficiency. Protected industries, sheltered from competition, may lack the incentive to cut costs, improve quality, or innovate, leading to economic stagnation. Over time, the protected industry may struggle to survive in a competitive global market without ongoing government support. For example, if a country continually protects its steel industry through tariffs, the industry may fail to invest in efficient production methods, leaving it unprepared to compete when tariffs are eventually lifted. This stagnation can impact overall economic growth, as resources are channeled into less productive sectors. By propping up inefficient industries, tariffs can reduce productivity, hinder innovation, and ultimately harm the broader economy, as resources could have been allocated to more dynamic and globally competitive sectors. 8. Increased costs for consumers. Tariffs directly raise costs for consumers as businesses pass on increased import prices. For example, a tariff on electronics might make smartphones, laptops, and televisions more expensive, straining household budgets. For consumers, the impact of tariffs can be significant when applied to essential goods like food, clothing, or household items. These price increases limit disposable income, as consumers have less money left for non-essential spending after covering their basic needs. Over time, these rising prices reduce overall demand, leading to broader economic repercussions. When consumers spend less on goods and services due to tariffs, it can slow down other sectors of the economy, creating a feedback loop of reduced economic activity. 9. Inflationary pressure and wage price spiral. Tariffs contribute to inflation by raising the price of goods and services, particularly when they affect widely used products like energy or food. This inflationary pressure erodes purchasing power, reducing consumers' ability to buy other goods. When inflation occurs, it often sparks a wage price spiral, where workers demand higher wages to keep up with rising costs, forcing businesses to raise prices even further to cover these higher wages. This cycle can lead to prolonged inflation, which reduces economic stability. High inflation can have a lasting impact on low-income households, as essential goods become increasingly unaffordable. Moreover, inflationary pressures can complicate monetary policy, forcing central banks to raise interest rates to curb inflation, potentially slowing economic growth. 10. Reduced consumer choice and market variety. Tariffs limit consumer choice by making imported goods less accessible. This reduction in variety can impact consumers' ability to access products that suit their preferences or meet specific needs. In some cases, domestic industries may lack the capacity to meet demand, leading to shortages. For example, if tariffs reduce access to foreign technology components, consumers might face delays or price hikes for products like smartphones and laptops. This lack of variety can discourage innovation, as consumers are forced to settle for fewer options. Moreover, reduced consumer choice can distort demand patterns, as consumers adapt to what is available rather than what they prefer, ultimately affecting consumer welfare and satisfaction. 11. Impact on export-oriented industries. Export-oriented industries often rely on imported raw materials, which tariffs can make more expensive. Higher input costs reduce the competitiveness of exported goods, limiting access to international markets. For instance, tariffs on imported aluminum and steel can raise costs for US car manufacturers. These increased production costs can price American cars out of foreign markets, as competitors with access to cheaper materials can offer more affordable options. This reduced competitiveness can lead to job losses in export-oriented industries, as companies struggle to maintain profitability. When export industries suffer, the economic impact extends to suppliers, employees, and related industries, leading to broader economic decline. 12. Retaliation and trade wars. When a country imposes tariffs, it often provokes retaliatory measures from the affected countries, sparking what is known as a trade war. In a trade war, countries increase tariffs on each other's goods, creating a cycle of escalating trade barriers. This retaliation can quickly expand beyond the initially targeted industries, impacting a broader range of goods and services across multiple sectors. Trade wars lead to reduced market access for exporters and can disrupt global trade flows. For example, the recent US-China trade war led to tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars of goods, impacting American farmers, technology manufacturers, and a host of other industries that depended on international trade. The broader impact of a trade war is often economic contraction, as both countries experience slowed economic growth. Businesses and consumers suffer from the higher costs of goods, while industries that depend on imported materials or export revenue face declines. In the long term, trade wars can undermine global economic stability, erode trust between trading partners, and disrupt established supply chains, forcing companies to reconsider their global operations. 13. Supply chain disruptions. Tariffs can cause significant disruptions in global supply chains, as businesses are forced to source materials from alternative, often more expensive, suppliers to avoid increased costs. In industries that depend on international inputs, like electronics, automotive, and pharmaceuticals, tariffs can lead to delays, shortages, and increased production costs. For example, US tariffs on Chinese-made electronic components forced many American companies to restructure their supply chains, shifting production to countries like Vietnam and India, or absorbing the increased costs. This disruption slowed production timelines, increased shipping costs, and created operational challenges for companies with global supply chains. Long-term supply chain disruption impacts business flexibility and resilience. As companies are forced to operate in a less efficient manner, it can affect their ability to respond quickly to market demands. This inefficiency can hurt industries that rely on just-in-time (JIT) production models, where delays in one component can disrupt an entire production cycle, affecting final product availability and pricing. 14. Reduced economic growth. Tariffs tend to stifle overall economic growth by disrupting consumer spending, raising production costs, and creating uncertainty in the business environment. With reduced purchasing power, consumers are less likely to spend on non-essential goods, slowing economic activity across retail and service sectors. Additionally, companies facing increased costs for imported inputs may reduce their workforce or halt expansion plans, impacting job creation and overall economic dynamism. The cumulative effect is a slowdown in gross domestic product, GDP growth, as sectors dependent on trade and consumption contract. The compounding effect of tariffs can be particularly damaging in economies reliant on imports for raw materials or intermediate goods. As tariffs disrupt industrial inputs, overall productivity falls, reducing the country's competitive standing in the global market. In the long term, reduced economic growth limits tax revenues and public spending, making it harder for governments to invest in infrastructure, education, and other areas essential for a thriving economy. 15. Deterrence of foreign investment. Countries that frequently use tariffs as a trade policy tool can deter foreign investment, as multinational companies may perceive them as risky environments for stable operations. Foreign investors generally seek predictable open markets, where trade and investment policies support business growth and profitability. Tariffs and other trade barriers increase operational costs, impacting the profitability of investments in industries that rely on imports. For example, a foreign car manufacturer may hesitate to build a factory in a country with high steel tariffs, as this would increase production costs for every vehicle produced. The broader impact of reduced foreign investment is a slower rate of economic modernization and reduced job opportunities. Countries that successfully attract foreign investment benefit from the influx of capital, new technologies, and job creation. In contrast, countries that discourage foreign investment through protectionist policies may face slower industrial growth, limiting the development of a competitive, modern economy. 16. Business confidence and investment uncertainty. Businesses depend on stable trade policies for long-term planning, but tariffs introduce an element of unpredictability that can erode business confidence. When companies are unsure of future costs and market access, they may delay or reduce investment in key areas, such as manufacturing capacity, R&D, and workforce expansion. For instance, in industries with complex global supply chains, such as automotive and electronics manufacturing, companies may put expansion plans on hold if tariffs disrupt the availability of essential components. This hesitancy impacts sectors reliant on capital-intensive investments, as companies need confidence that their returns will not be compromised by shifting trade policies. Reduced investment slows down technological progress, reducing the competitiveness of domestic industries. When companies are reluctant to invest in advanced technologies or efficiency improvements, they risk falling behind in a global market, increasingly driven by innovation. This lag can reduce a country's competitive edge, limiting its ability to adapt to shifting economic trends and demands. 17. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff, 1930. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 was one of the most infamous examples of tariffs with unintended economic consequences. Aimed at protecting American jobs during the Great Depression, the tariff raised import taxes on thousands of goods, intending to shield domestic industries from international competition. However, the result was disastrous, as other countries retaliated with tariffs on US goods, leading to a significant contraction in global trade. International markets for American goods dried up, exacerbating the economic hardship faced by US manufacturers, farmers, and workers. The reduction in trade is widely considered to have deepened and prolonged the Great Depression. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff serves as a cautionary example of how protectionist policies can backfire, damaging the very industries they aim to protect. By disrupting global trade, the tariff hurt American exporters and consumers, demonstrating the dangers of isolationist trade policies during economic downturns. 18. The US-China Trade War, 2018-2020. The recent US-China trade war offers another example of the complex effects of tariffs. Starting in 2018, the United States imposed tariffs on Chinese goods, citing unfair trade practices. In response, China imposed tariffs on American products, affecting industries such as agriculture, technology, and manufacturing. The tariffs led to significant disruptions, with US farmers losing access to one of their largest export markets, while American technology firms faced increased costs for imported components. Additionally, companies that depended on Chinese consumer demand saw reduced sales, impacting their bottom lines and shareholder value. The broader impact of the US-China trade war has been a rethinking of global supply chains, as companies seek to diversify their sourcing and reduce dependence on any one country. This shift highlights the long-term structural changes tariffs can impose on international business operations as companies adjust to an unpredictable trade environment. 19. Post-Brexit. Tariffs and trade realignment. The United Kingdom's exit from the European Union introduced a new layer of tariffs and trade barriers that have had far-reaching effects on the UK economy. Post-Brexit, tariffs and regulatory checks on goods moving between the UK and EU created delays, increased costs, and added complexity for businesses reliant on integrated supply chains across Europe. Industries such as food and beverage production, automotive manufacturing, and pharmaceuticals faced particular challenges, as new tariffs impacted the cost of raw materials and delayed shipments. Many UK-based companies were forced to re-evaluate their production and distribution models, with some shifting operations to EU countries to avoid tariffs. The broader impact of Brexit-related tariffs illustrates how major policy changes can disrupt established trade relationships, forcing companies and consumers to adapt to new economic realities. The post-Brexit scenario underscores the potential for tariffs to reshape national economies as trade flows are realigned to account for new regulatory and fiscal barriers. 20. Tariffs as a double-edged sword for government revenue. While tariffs can provide a temporary boost to government revenue, the broader economic costs may outweigh the financial benefits. High tariffs can reduce the volume of imports, which in turn reduces tariff revenue as importers seek alternative sources or reduce import levels altogether. Furthermore, if tariffs dampen economic growth, the associated reduction in income tax and corporate tax revenues can offset any gains from tariff revenue. This effect highlights the limitations of tariffs as a reliable revenue source, especially in economies dependent on imported goods. Over time, the reduction in trade volume may lead to a decrease in tax revenues from other areas as businesses generate less taxable income. The potential decline in overall revenue underscores the short-sightedness of tariffs as a long-term fiscal policy, as they may undermine economic stability rather than strengthening it. 21. Resource misallocation and economic inefficiency. Tariffs distort market forces by incentivizing resources to flow into protected industries, often at the expense of more competitive sectors. By raising prices on imports, tariffs create artificial demand for domestic goods, leading capital and labor to concentrate in industries that may lack long-term growth potential. This resource misallocation can reduce overall economic productivity, as resources are diverted from sectors where a country has a natural competitive advantage. Over time, tariffs can lead to an economy characterized by inefficiency and low productivity, as industries dependent on protection struggle to compete without government intervention. Economic theory suggests that countries should specialize in industries where they hold a comparative advantage to maximize productivity. Tariffs disrupt this principle by protecting industries that may not be globally competitive, creating economic inefficiencies and limiting overall growth. 22. Impact on technological progress and innovation. Tariffs can stifle technological progress by limiting access to imported technologies and discouraging investment in research and development. When industries are protected from international competition, they may lack the incentive to innovate, as they do not need to compete with more advanced foreign products. In sectors reliant on high-tech components such as electronics, medical equipment, or automotive manufacturing, tariffs on foreign imports can restrict access to cutting-edge technology. For example, tariffs on semiconductor imports can impact technological sectors that rely on these components, reducing innovation in fields like computing, artificial intelligence, and robotics. Over time, the lack of competition and access to foreign technology can make a country's industries less globally competitive. In contrast, economies that embrace free trade benefit from exposure to foreign technologies, which encourages domestic companies to innovate and adopt new practices to remain competitive. As tariffs isolate industries from these benefits, they may fall behind in technological advancements, impacting productivity and growth. 23. Political and diplomatic strain. Tariffs can strain diplomatic relationships, especially when perceived as hostile trade measures. Countries that frequently impose tariffs risk alienating their trading partners, leading to strained political alliances and diminished cooperation on other international issues, such as climate policy or security. For instance, the US-China trade war affected diplomatic relations between the two nations, complicating negotiations on unrelated matters like cybersecurity, environmental agreements, and regional security. Such diplomatic tensions can reduce the scope for cooperation in areas where multilateral action is crucial, limiting progress on global issues. Moreover, long-standing trade partnerships that rely on mutual trust can be jeopardized by tariffs. When countries impose tariffs on one another's goods, it can damage the long-term stability of their economic relationship, making it difficult to re-establish trust and cooperation. These strained relationships can lead to isolation, reducing a country's influence on the global stage and limiting its ability to form beneficial economic or political alliances. 24. Erosion of global economic integration. Tariffs can erode the progress made in global economic integration by encouraging countries to adopt more protectionist policies, effectively reversing the trend toward free trade that has characterized the post-World War II global economy. This erosion of integration can impact global GDP, reduce economic efficiency, and limit opportunities for countries to benefit from comparative advantages. For example, international organizations like the World Trade Organization, WTO, have worked to reduce trade barriers and promote global economic integration. However, when major economies impose tariffs, it encourages other countries to follow suit, leading to a cycle of protectionism. As countries become more isolated, the benefits of global trade diminish, impacting supply chains, resource allocation, and overall productivity. This shift towards protectionism can have long-term consequences for the global economy, as countries lose access to foreign markets, technology, and investment. The resulting decline in international trade can limit economic growth opportunities for both developed and developing nations, ultimately reducing global standards of living. Moreover, reduced integration makes it more challenging to address transnational issues like climate change, poverty reduction, and technological progress, highlighting the broader social and economic costs of tariffs beyond immediate economic impacts. Summary. We've explored how tariffs impact everything from diplomatic relations to technological progress, highlighting their complex and often detrimental effects on economies. While tariffs can offer temporary protection for domestic industries, their broader implications include strained trade relationships, reduced global integration, and limited access to innovation. In an increasingly interconnected world, these protectionist policies can hinder both domestic and international economic growth, suggesting that reliance on tariffs may be counterproductive in the long run.